If the Philadelphia Eagles are going to become a dynasty and win multiple Super Bowls in this era, it's going to be because of something that we're not talking about enough. I'll get into that coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Welcome in, Eagles fans, to this Wednesday edition of the show. I'm your host, Louis DiBiase. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 back in bonus bets. All you got to do is win your first $5 bet. This is our last show until it's game day. The Philadelphia Eagles take on the Cincinnati Bengals tomorrow night in the preseason opener. Joe Burrow is going to play. Will Eagles starters play? Will Jalen Hurts be under center? We will get into that later on in the show, but I want to talk about something first that Jalen Hurts brought up the other day, and it's something that I think is so crucial to winning another Super Bowl, whether it's in 2025 or if this team's going to become a dynasty or just a team that wins multiple Super Bowls in the same era. You know, a team even like the New York Giants, they won in 2007 and 2011. The Pittsburgh Steelers won in, 2005, the 2005-2006 season, and then they won again in the 2009-2010 season. Maybe they don't become a dynasty and win 3+ Super Bowls in this era, but if they're going to be a team that wins multiple championships with the same quarterback, the same head coach, the same core, chemistry is going to be so important. And I think you hear that and you roll your eyes. Like, obviously, the team being close, the team having chemistry both in continuity, both on and off the field, like, duh, of course. That's literally the definition of a dynasty, is that things aren't changing and they keep winning championships. Like, that part doesn't change either. But I'm talking specifically about offensive chemistry, specifically about quarterback to pass catcher chemistry. This is something Jalen Hurts talked about the other day when hyping up Jahan Dotson, who's had a really good training camp, made an unbelievable catch in red zone drills for a touchdown. It was cover 0. Vic Fangio sent the house to Jalen Hurts. Hurts, kind of like he did in Super Bowl 59, had the blitz figured out in this moment, found Dotson over the middle of the field. He made a great catch, and Jalen talked after practice about how their chemistry is growing and how the more Dotson played in that offense last year, down the stretch, he was able to make bigger plays. Their rapport was able to grow, and he mentioned how he was able to make those plays, the touchdown against Green Bay and the wild card round of the playoffs, those big 2 explosive receptions in the first half of the Super Bowl, and their chemistry continues to grow, and of course that's like so crucial, obviously, but when you think about it, when you look at all the factors that make a dynasty or a team that consistently year after year compete for championships, there's a lot of variables that go into it. It's not as black and white as it's these 3 things you have to do. There's so much that goes into it. But when you look at teams like the New England Patriots, when you look at teams like the Kansas City Chiefs, and even, let's go back for our older football fans, the, 80s San Francisco 49ers, the 90s Dallas Cowboys. What was a consistent variable that all these teams had? It was quarterback, pass catcher, long-term chemistry. With the 49ers, of course, you had Joe Montana and Jerry Rice. In the 90s, you had Troy Aikman and Michael Irvin. And again, Troy Aikman wasn't a star, but I think the chemistry between those two and even Emmitt Smith in the backfield was a massive reason for that dynasty of the Dallas Cowboys in the 90s. The New England Patriots. Tom Brady had the chemistry of a lifetime with Julian Edelman and Rob Gronkowski. He was able to grow those connections for years on end, and they were able to win 3 Super Bowls in they won in 2014, 2016, 2018. So they won over the span of 5 years. They were able to win 3 championships. A lot of that had to do with chemistry between a quarterback and pass catchers. When you look at the history of the Philadelphia Eagles, they have never had that kind of chemistry. Jaws and Harold Carmichael, I guess, is that like the longest termed quarterback pass catcher relationship? Randall Cunningham never had that with anybody. Donovan McNabb had it with average role players like Todd Pinkston and James Thrash and Chad Lewis, but He had 1 season of Terrell Owens. He had 2 seasons of Deshaun Jackson and 1 year of Jeremy Maclin, and that was really it. Like, Donovan McNabb never had that with anybody. Carson Wentz, he had it with Zach Ertz to a degree, but he had 2.5 years of Alshon Jeffrey, and only 1.5 was productive together. I guess Wentz and Ertz counts. Like, Nick Foles had that as well with Zach Ertz, but what they have right now with, I'm not even talking about Dotson. I'm talking about with A.J. Brown heading into year 4 with the Eagles, Devontae Smith heading into season 5 with the Philadelphia Eagles, with Jalen Hurts specifically. Dallas Goedert is heading into season 6 with Jalen Hurts. Jalen has had Dallas Goedert as one of his top 3 go-to options every year he's been a starter. Now he's got his second year with Jahan Dotson, his second year with Saquon Barkley. I think quarterback and pass catcher chemistry and then quarterback head coach chemistry, like those are 2 dynamics that I think are so crucial to long-term sustained championship level success. And the Philadelphia Eagles have never really been able to build that for their quarterbacks. I guess, like, outside of Jaws and Harold Carmichael, like, what's the other one? I mean, yeah, I think it's Wentz and Ertz. And then they had, 2016, 17, 18, 19. So in 2020. So Wentz and Ertz had 5 years together. Michael Vick had 2010, 11, and 12 with Deshaun Jackson. So he had we had 3 years of Vick and D-Jax, but that wasn't very successful. This is a different level. And Jalen now has had 6 years with Dallas Goedert, 5 years with Devontae Smith, heading into year 4 with A.J. Brown, year 2 of Saquon, year 2 of of Dotson. Like, that's really important to me. And I think Jalen Hurts mentioned how crucial that is in his press conference yesterday. Not only because, of course, it's crucial to have elite productive weapons to sustain success and win championships. It's so important. It's why Howie Roseman has invested more resources into that dynamic than anybody in football over the last decade. But when you look at it, like, off the field, it's huge for culture. But just like chemistry within a system, they can non-verbally communicate. They know what routes that they like to run. Jalen knows how these receivers get open. He can read their tendencies. Like, he can throw better with anticipation because he knows, again, where receivers are going to be, how they see the football field, how they see plays, and how they get in and out of their breaks, just how their bodies move. Like, there's, again, just this nonverbal on-field chemistry that when, again, yeah, obviously changing your scheme and being different every year is important. But in the NFL, there's only so much you can do differently every single year when you have the same scheme and the same players. In a nutshell, it's really, in a vacuum, or in the grand scheme of things, really, it's mostly about execution. And it's easier to execute when they've been working so long together. It's why Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, like, Andy Reid is not reinventing the wheel every single year. It's a lot of the same stuff. Why does it work? Chemistry, familiarity in a single system. Mahomes and Travis Kelce, Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski, Tom Brady and Julian Edelman. I think you're seeing that in the AFC with guys like Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. Like, they're going to be at that level. I think that's really important, and you've seen teams that consistently win, they have that dynamic. And the Philadelphia Eagles have really never had that until now. It's going to help Jalen Hurts develop as a pocket passer, as an anticipatory thrower. It's going to make him more accurate. It's made him a more evolved quarterback already. And I think it's only going to help him more and more. And Jalen highlighted that yesterday. I think it's such a crucial piece to this puzzle that maybe we don't talk about enough because it's, on the surface it seems obvious, but I think it is really important to talk about. All right, guys, coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. Now that the Eagles made a trade for another cornerback that's going to compete for a starting job opposite Quinyon Mitchell. I'm not talking about Kelee Ringo stock here, and if his spot is safe, his starting job. Is Adoree Jackson's roster spot safe now? We'll talk about that coming up next right here on Locked On Eagles. Today's episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast, we are brought to you today by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of the year. NFL kickoff is almost here. Eagles-Cowboys is less than it's pretty much exactly a month away, and that means fantasy football season is back. and in full swing. And this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a fantasy football experience like never before. This year, me and the Locked On Eagles squad, we are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too. Whether you're a first-timer or a veteran, making your millionth league. We've been doing our league, me and my buddies, since 2009, and we do so many different features, keepers. We have very custom-specific scoring, and you can get that all on Yahoo Fantasy. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy, they're actually dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. To kick it off, they just dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues. They are so much fun. It's a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's only one team left standing. With the season around the corner, now's the time to get your league together and give this new mode a try. If you're more into the classics, you can still play in head-to-head private leagues or join a public league as well. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. Thanks so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Now that the Eagles traded for Jakorian Bennett, and as I said on the episode yesterday of Locked On Eagles, I think he is now the favorite, even over Kelee Ringo, to start long-term this season, opposite Quinyon Mitchell at corner. It's going to be, I think, Quinyon Mitchell, Jakorian Bennett, and Cooper DeJean. I really do believe that. I think it's, even if it's not to start the season, I think Jakorian Bennett's going to play a lot of football this year. And so, of course, we talked about how on yesterday's show that impacts Kelee Ringo. I don't think Ringo now is the favorite to win the job. The only reason he'd have a leg up now, in my opinion, is that he's been in the system for longer. Like Jakorian Bennett's behind the eight ball. He's only got a month to learn this defense before the regular season starts. You know, with Fangio, he really prioritizes being on the field, getting physical reps. Cooper DeJean last year wasn't able to crack the starting lineup until 5 games into the season. Right after the bye week, he made his starting debut against the Cleveland Browns. So maybe it's not right away, and maybe that's really important for Kelee Ringo. He might, because of that, be able to hang on to the starting job to start the year. Those first 4 games, that first month of the year, will be so crucial for Ringo. If, again, Bennett's not just handed the job, and Ringo does get it, beating out Adoree Jackson, we're assuming that as well as part of this, which is maybe tough to assume right now because Jackson's been getting more first-team reps than Kelee. But let's say Kelee in this scenario does get that opportunity. He's got to ball out those first 4 games. If he's making mistakes and giving up big plays, Jakorian Bennett's going to play football. But let's say he does start. Let's say Bennett does get the job right off the bat. Kelee Ringo is not going anywhere, though. They're going to want him as one of their top 4 cornerbacks. As depth, he's a very good. I think he's going to be a good starting corner if he's given the chance and they let him play to his strengths. But if not, I think he's a very high-end backup, more than capable. If that's the equation that works out and Jakorian Bennett's playing over Ringo and it's not Adoree Jackson, I think there's actually a really good chance suddenly that Adoree Jackson could go from someone that was beating out Kelee Ringo to start to suddenly a player that doesn't even make the 53-man roster. Because think about it. Again, this is in the scenario that Jakorian Bennett is starting, or even Kelee Ringo. So if it's not Adoree, if he doesn't beat those 2 out for the job outright, you have Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, they're both locks. Kelee Ringo and Jakorian Bennett are locks. Those 4 corners are not getting cut. They are not getting maybe they're getting traded. Maybe Ringo gets traded, but I think those 4 are on this football team. I don't think they're cutting Mac McWilliams. He has slot inside-outside versatility. He's a rookie. Howie doesn't like to get rid of his draft picks. I think he's going to play on special teams. He's been having a good camp. Mac McWilliams is making this team. Eli Ricks is somebody the Eagles have developed over 3 years. Eli Ricks, while he's given up some plays in training camp, he's also been making some eye-popping plays too, and he's really growing, and he's a very young football player. I think you want Mac McWilliams and Eli Ricks to continue to develop as that number 5 and 6 cornerback. If you're keeping 5 or 6 corners, again, you've got, unless you're trading Kelee Ringo or Adoree Jackson starts, you're keeping Quinyon, Cooper, Ringo, Bennett, McWilliams, and Ricks. That's 6 players. So do you really want Adoree Jackson as your 5th or 6th guy that probably isn't going to be very useful with special teams? Like, I suddenly think if he can't beat out Ringo and Bennett, maybe Ringo gets dealt if they want to start Bennett. But if not, I think Jackson does not make the football team. He's going to have to start, or Ringo's going to have to get traded. And I don't think he's better than Jakorian Bennett and Kelee Ringo. I don't think he's better than either of them, let alone just one. So I don't think he's going to win this job. And if he doesn't, and they don't trade Ringo away, which is an interesting possibility, I could see a team like, a Tampa Bay Buccaneers or Dallas Cowboys style of defense that plays aggressive man coverage that would maybe want to trade for him. But if not, I think Adoree Jackson's off this football team. I'm not keeping a 30-year-old veteran that's aging and slowing down, that doesn't play special teams really all that effectively, over Mac McWilliams or Eli Ricks. I'm sorry, I'm not doing that. So suddenly, Adoree Jackson could have just went, like, Ringo's stock is obviously hurt by this trade, but Adoree Jackson's is hurt even more because he could have went from a player that could maybe be a starter to now suddenly, I think he's on another football team by the time week 1 starts. So we'll see what happens, but in my next 53-man roster predictions, I probably won't have Adoree on the football team. I think it's going to be Jakorian Bennett or Kelee Ringo starting. The other one's your primary boundary backup. And then I think you keep those 2 young guys as depth. And then Cooper DeJean can also play on the outside. So I just don't see the need for Adoree Jackson on this football team. Again, unless Kelee Ringo gets traded. It's very similar to the Rasul Douglas situation with Jim Schwartz, where I think the front office believes in the player. The player has clear and obvious strengths that made him a 3rd, early 4th round pick, elite length and size and good ball skills for a corner. In the right system, it could be a very good football player like Rasul Douglas was in Green Bay and Buffalo, but just wrong player for the wrong scheme, right? The front office believes in him. They believe in the talent of the player, but the coach doesn't believe in his ability to fit in the scheme. I think it's Jim Schwartz, Kelee Ringo, or Jim Schwartz, Rasul Douglas all over again with Vic Fangio and Kelee Ringo. So maybe he does get traded. I think that's an interesting possibility if Jakorian Bennett does start or Adoree Jackson. If not, bye-bye Adoree. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, but I'm very intrigued by Jakorian Bennett. I want to see him on the football field. I want to see him playing. He's not playing tomorrow night, but I want to see him playing in those final 2 preseason games, and between him and Kelee, may the best man win. And I don't think the Eagles trade for Jakorian at this time of the year if they're very confident in Kelee starting. So that to me says Jakorian is favored to start. If not, it's definitely an open battle. May the best man win. So we'll see what happens. Let me know what you think. Hit us up on X at Locked On Birds. I posted a poll earlier today asking you who you think is going to start a corner. Adoree Jackson, Kelee Ringo, or now Jakorian Bennett. Coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast, we'll wrap up this edition of the show talking about tomorrow's game. Eagles-Bengals tomorrow night to kick off the preseason. We'll preview tomorrow what backups we're really watching, because that's the whole point of the preseason for role player roles, backup jobs, spots on the 53-man roster. But what about starters? Who do we want on the football field tomorrow? What starters do we need to see perform tomorrow night? I'll get into that coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. Today's episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast, we are brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You've already been following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I've been using FanDuel all summer for tennis, for soccer, for baseball. They got new daily promotions and so many fun ways to bet. Whether you're placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet ride into the 9th inning, FanDuel makes it feel like you're part of the action all day, every day. New to FanDuel? Well, new customers can bet just $5. You're going to get $150 back in bonus bets if your first bet wins. So open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Thanks as always for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Louis DiBiase wrapping up this Wednesday edition of the show. We have a football game to talk about tomorrow. The Eagles' first preseason game of the year takes place against the Cincinnati Bengals. I'll have a live postgame show for you on our Locked On Eagles YouTube channel. The audio version of the pod will be uploaded shortly thereafter. A lot of backups to watch, a lot of young players and role players that I'm excited to see against Cincinnati. But there are some starters that I do want to see on the football field tomorrow. We know the Bengals are actually going to play Joe Burrow a little bit and some of their first-team players on both offense and defense. For the Eagles, I don't want to see a lot of guys. Like, I want to see 90% of the starting lineup not on the football field tomorrow. The pros are just not outweighing the cons with starters playing in the preseason, especially when you have joint practices too. And the Eagles' strategy of resting guys in the preseason to keep them healthy in the Nick Sirianni era, it's led to a lot of success from a health perspective. But there are some starters that I do want to see out there. There's 5 guys specifically, and they're pretty much all on defense except for one guy. So I want to see Kelee Ringo play. I want to see Tyler Steen, Jordan Davis, Sidney Brown, and Jalen Hunt. Some for more obvious reasons than others. Kelee Ringo, well, I just talked about him last segment. Jakorian Bennett is now a Philadelphia Eagle. He's, I think, a really good football player, an underrated, on-the-rise player. And I think he's, if not favored to start over Kelee and Adoree Jackson come week 1 at corner. I think he's got as good of a chance as both of them. And so Ringo's got to go earn these reps. He's been having, I think, a good offseason, good OTAs, good training camp. He's made a lot of plays, almost had a pick 6 the other day in practice. But at the same time, Vic Fangio, it still feels like, isn't all in on Kelee. They just traded for a corner. Adoree Jackson was getting more first-team reps the last 2 weeks than Kelee. The order of those events, chronologically, it's not a coincidence that suddenly right after Adoree is beating out Ringo, they're trading for a cornerback that's young and has more production than Kelee, and I think fits more in Fangio's zone-heavy defense. So to change all of this, to get that job back, to make sure he is the guy come week 1, Kelee needs to have a strong preseason. He did it last year. Maybe it won't be enough, but maybe it is. Because, again, it's not like, he's behind the 8 ball now, but it's not like Jakorian Bennett and Adoree Jackson are these star corners so much better than Kelee. I personally believe Ringo is a better player than both of those guys. I think he has a higher ceiling. I think he's a more talented player, and I think he would be more productive throughout the entirety of this season compared to those other two if Fangio gave him a shot. We'll see if he does. Ringo, though, really needs to ball out in the preseason, and more importantly, just don't give up big plays. That's going to be really crucial. Show that you can play within the confines of this defense. You can play smart, controlled football. Show your vision, your IQ, your ability to play in zone coverage. This is a big, big game for Kelee Ringo. And as I said, Tyler Steen is the one offensive player I want to see, starting on the offensive line, because he's the one guy that he's the new starter that we don't really know what he's going to look like starting 17 games. We saw him in spurts last year in place of injured offensive linemen. And I like what I've seen from Steen. He's had a good camp. The coaches and defensive players are raving about him. I want to see him on the field. I want to see him in the preseason. Does he clearly look more powerful, more savvy on the field this year than last year in his rookie season? I want to see if there is an obvious difference with Tyler Steen in year 3. So he's the only guy on offense that I want out there. No other offensive starter should be playing tomorrow night. And then Jordan Davis, another guy, kind of like Tyler Steen. I want to see where you're at in your development as a pass rusher. Everybody says, including you, how much you're in shape. Well, let's see it. Let's see you play on all 3 downs. Let's see you get to the quarterback. Let's see you still be, even as a lighter player this year, comparatively speaking, he's still a giant. Let's see you still be as dominant against the run. I'm just curious about Jordan Davis's development as a pass rusher, and I want to see if he's more explosive, more low to the ground, if his technique looks better. I think Jordan Davis should play, not a lot tomorrow night, but he's one of the starters on the defensive line that I want to see him get some reps, especially if I'm the Eagles, I'm throwing him onto the field in obvious pass rushing situations to see how he handles it. And then the other two, Sidney Brown and Jalen Hunt, just because they're young, on-the-rise starters with still stuff to prove. They've both shown flashes, obviously more so Jalen Hunt than Sidney Brown, but again, camp and the preseason are different. Yes, joint practices are even maybe more important than the preseason, but the preseason is still valuable for these kinds of players because you can only simulate live game action so much, even in joint practices. So for me, the preseason is still crucial because that's when the instincts kicks in. That's the talent. Let's see you mesh what you've been working on this offseason with just your ability to play in an actual game. So Sidney Brown and Jalen Hunt, I'm excited to see those guys as well. So those are the 5 starters that I want to see out there. I don't want to see Jahad Campbell even. Keep him healthy for week 1. They've been throwing a lot on his plate on defense. Obviously, it'd be exciting to see him play, but keep getting that shoulder healthy. For me, it's these 5 guys: Kelee Ringo, Tyler Steen, Jordan Davis, Sidney Brown, Jalix Hunt. I want to see those guys on Thursday night against Cincinnati. We'll have a recap show for you tomorrow. Got 2 more episodes this week on the Locked On Eagles podcast, so make sure you subscribe on YouTube and all podcast platforms. Until tomorrow, thanks so much for downloading, watching, and listening, and hey, let's go Birds. Fly, Eagles, fly.